Hey guys, it's Andy from andybaker.com and owner of Kingwood Strength and Conditioning. And we're coming to you today with another whiteboard lesson on two very important topics, two very simple topics. But years ago when I started doing a lot of online programming for people, writing programs and that sort of thing, both of these topics were two things that I thought intuitively that people understood and knew how to do on their own without a lot of detailed explanation. But that was one of those times where those assumptions were very much wrong. So this is something that pops up all the time with clients. For a lot of you guys that I write programs for and that sort of thing, is how to warm up, okay, properly before your work sets, and also how to max out, or how to determine a 1 rep max. What is the process like in working up in weight to work up towards a 1 rep max? And that could be either in a meet or it could just be in the gym taking out a training max. So the processes are actually very similar, and the whole process of warming up and maxing out is also kind of similar. So we're going to start with the warm up process first, okay? And this one is probably one that, especially amongst novices and certain in some early intermediates, this is something that gets messed up quite a bit. And people generally make one of two mistakes when they're working up through their warm-up sets. One is they don't take nearly enough warm-up. Okay, this is actually less common than the other one. But basically, what it looks like and the thought process behind it is that if I save myself and if I do the bare minimum amount of warm-up, then I'll be stronger for my work sets. And that's usually flawed. Okay, one of the worst things you can do, especially on like a heavy squat, heavy bench press, something like that, one of the worst things that you can do is go into that lift cold. Okay, and so if you've ever done that, you know that it's not really a pleasant experience. So one of the things that we want to do, we want to make sure we strike that right balance. We want to get enough warm up to where we're nice and loose, the joints are lubricated, we've got plenty of blood flow going around, so that we feel good and we're also acclimated to whatever that heavy weight is going to be. The other side of that coin is what people do, and this is much more common, is where people do way too many warm-up sets, or they do way too many repetitions too close to whatever their target work weight is going to be. So this comes in a lot of ways. I think it comes from two things. One is poor planning. Okay, so not knowing what you're going to be working up to that day, so you're kind of just guessing, so you're kind of warming up by feel, trying to figure out the right amount of weight to use for that day, which sometimes that's necessary if you're coming off of a layoff or something like that. You've had some sort of interruption to your programming. Otherwise, that's just an example of poor planning, of not knowing what your target weight is that day. So in general, you always want to know what your target weight is going to be that day. The other part of that is a lack of confidence, and I think that's almost probably more common, where people are working up to the first time they do a 405 squat and they're just very uneasy about it, and so they're taking their last warm-up set at 395, that sort of thing. So much too close in weight and expending too much energy. So warming up, we've got two mistakes. We've got too little warm-up, okay, and we've got too much warm-up. All right, and so let me give you an example of what too much warm-up might look like. This is just an example. I'm going to use a 405 squat just because it's a nice round number. But here's something that we might see. So we might see 45. So there's the bar for 5. Then we go 135 for 5. And then he's going to 185 for 5. 225. Okay. 275 for 5. 315 for 5. Okay, this looks like already a lot of work, doesn't it? And it is. Okay, and this is not uncommon for me to see when I ask people to send me all their sets and reps, including their warm-ups. So we're already getting into quite a bit of work here, and we're still 100 pounds away from our work set. We might see 365 set of 5. Okay, and then starting to get closer to 405, then I might see something that looks like this: 385, and then maybe something like even 395, and then finally 405, and we're totally exhausted by the time we get there. So obviously in this situation, this is too much warm-up. It's too many overall sets, okay? So he made really 3 mistakes. One, just too many sets overall. You don't need that many warm-up sets when you're working up to, say, 405, okay? The other mistake that this person made was doing sets of 5 on everything. So let's say this was the target today. We wanted to get 405 for 5 as our main work set. Well, that doesn't mean you need to do 5 reps on every single warm-up set leading up to that, all right? So you're gonna be exhausted by the time you get there. And the third mistake that they made was clustering this right here. These warm-up sets were probably unnecessary, at least at that rep range. We didn't need a set at 365, 385, 395, and 405, or before we got to 405. So too much work at the top end. And usually, like I said, this amount of work here at the top end like that usually comes from either poor planning or a lack of confidence. Okay, the person they were not confident in their ability to hit 405, and so they kind of did that little feeler set at 395 just to make sure. And if that's the case, you need to probably do some mental work up here and get a little bit more aggressive under the bar so that you're not wearing yourself out with those kind of feeler sets, okay? Now, the other side of this is the person that does, like we said, too little work. So let's say they're also going to go to 405. Let's see, they go 45 for 5, 135 for 5, 225 for 1, 315 for 1, 405 for 5, okay? So this might be an example of somebody that's just trying to conserve energy. They're thinking the less that I do, the better I'll do on this heavy work set, or I'm in a rush. Okay, I'm trying to speed through the workout. I've only got, half hour to train or 45 minutes to train, so I'm trying to get through this really fast, and I'm going to skimp on the warm-up sets to make sure that I have time to get my work set in. And this is almost worse than this, because this can cause a bad workout. This can cause you just to not get your target sets and reps for the day. This can get you injured, okay, especially on something like a squat, where there's kind of a long eccentric, long loading phase. So this is not something that I would recommend. So what is my strategy for the warm-ups? Mine is going to look something like this, okay? Here's kind of a good rule of thumb that I use when you're trying to figure out how many warm-up sets to use and what your warm-up weight should be. Again, we're going to start at the end, all right? So let's say we're at 405 for 5. We know that's going to be our end work set. We'll keep using those numbers, all right? The most important set to get right is the last one, all right? Is the last warm-up set. That's the most important set to get right, okay? In general, I like something about a 5 to 10% offset, okay? So somewhere 5 to 10% off of that is going to be our last warm-up set. Let's just say for this, let's say maybe the lifter has a little bit of confidence issues. So we're going to do that 5% number. Okay, so we're going to do 20 pounds down from this is going to be our final warm-up set. So we're going to do 385. Okay, so I'm just going to write this here for your notes, 5 to 10%. Okay, 385, and that's just going to be for 1. Okay, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Now from here, we're going to work backwards to the bar. Okay, I hope my spacing up here works out. Okay, we're going to work backwards from this number to the bar to come up with our warm-up sets. So let's go something like, let's go another 10% down from here, so that'd be 40 pounds down. Let's go 345. Okay, let's go another 40 from here. We'll say that's 305. Okay, and then let's go 305 from there. We can probably just drop it down to 225, 135. Okay, and I'm going to put in here maybe 275. Okay. All right. So what we want to do, we've got the final work set plan and we've got the final warm-up set plan again for 1. By the time we get done with all of this, we're already warm. Okay, our muscles are loose, we're stretched out, we've got synovial fluid flowing through our joints, we've got blood flowing to our muscles, so we're already warmed up after probably these, let's say 5 here, let's say 3 here. So really after we do our sets with the bar, and I said 5, but I may do more than that. There's a lot of times if I'm feeling really stiff or a little bit sore from the previous workout, I may do 2, 3, 4 sets of 5, or 2 sets of 10 with the bar. So I'll do as many as it takes to start feeling loosened up with the bar, depending on the exercise that I'm doing. When I bench press, because I've got an old scar tissue kind of injury right here in my delt, I'll do about 30 to 50 reps with the empty bar before I even put 135 on there. Okay, and that's just because I have an old injury and it takes longer to heal. Okay, so you guys might have the same thing. So by the time we get to 225, we should already be warm. The rest of these sets are really just acclimation sets. And what is an acclimation set? It means you're basically just warming up your nervous system. Okay, so your muscles are already loose, but your nervous system is not ready to jump yet from 225, okay, to 405. Even though you're already warm, you're not ready to make that jump. Okay, so everything after these first few sets, and generally what I like to do is as many as it takes with the bar. The first set with weight is a set of 5. The next set with weight is a set of 3. Everything after that is just a single. Okay, I don't need to do sets of 3 or 5 reps or even 2 reps with that. Like I said, I'm already warm. I'm just trying to kind of grease the groove of the squat mechanics and warm up my nervous system in preparation for this heavier one, but I don't want to expend unnecessary energy. Okay, so everything after these first few sets is just singles, and we call that singling up. Okay, you're just singling up to your work set of 5 reps, okay? Now, I put 275 here in parentheses. Why did I do that? Because generally when I warm up, I leave a little bit of wiggle room based on how I feel, okay? So like when I'm warming up for squats, I'll usually just go like plates and quarters. So I'll go 135, 225, 315, 405, that sort of thing. So I'll just do 45s on up till 405, and then I'll start doing smaller increments. Now, that's if I'm feeling pretty good and fresh. So if I'm feeling pretty good and fresh, I just throw plates on there as I'm warming up, okay? If I'm not, if I come in, I'm a little bit sluggish for whatever reason, my groove feels off, I'm sore, I'm stiff, that sort of thing, then I might throw in an additional warm-up set. So sometimes I would do a set between, let's just say this is our example, 225 and 305. I may do the set with 275, I may not. So if 225 feels great, if I feel strong, if bar speed is good, then I might just skip over 275 and go right to 305. If I didn't, if I was a little sluggish, okay, a little stiff, then I might do that. So, and you'll do the same thing. So again, going back to me, when I warm up, sometimes I'll go right from 315 to 405. Sometimes I do 365. It just depends on how I feel. Okay, so I leave that in there. You don't have to follow the same black and white exact pattern every single time. You want to go a little bit by feel. But this is basically the formula. Start with your end in mind. Okay, so start with the heavy work set first, and then get your next warm up, get your last warm up set right, and that's always going to be about 5 to 10% off for one, and then you can walk backwards from there. If you mess up this stuff in here a little bit, it's okay. It's not as costly as messing up this one. All right, because if this last warm up set, if it's too far away from your work set, your nervous system's not going to be prepared for this heavier load. If it's too close to the work set, or if it's done for too many reps, then you're going to run the risk of wearing yourself out, okay? So this is my formula for how to warm up. It can be applied for any lifter, no matter how strong you are. Obviously, the stronger you are, you're going to have more warm-up sets. And also, you're going to have more experience, so you'll kind of know how to go by feel a little bit better. But this can be applied to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're doing 1 work set, if you're going to do 3 work sets, sets of 5, sets of 3, 1, 10, doesn't matter. The process is all the same. Only warm up with the higher rep stuff this first few sets, get loose. Everything else is singles on up, and then make sure you get that last work set or that last warm-up set right. So that's the warm-ups, and now we're going to go into maxing out.